Good day, ChurchOne. Wherever you are, I hope you're having a good day. We've been celebrating Mom recently. I don't know if the name Max Stossel means anything to you, but he's a writer, a storyteller, he's a filmmaker. He says he doesn't know who wrote the story that I heard him tell a few weeks ago, but I think it's the perfect story for a day such as today. In a mother's womb were two babies. One turns to the other and says, "Do you believe in life after delivery?" The other replies, "Why, of course. There has to be something after delivery. And maybe we're here to prepare ourselves for what will be later." "Nonsense," says the first. "There's no life after delivery. What kind of life would that be?" "I don't know," says the second, "but there'll be more light than there is in here. Maybe we'll walk with our legs and eat with our mouths. Maybe we'll have other senses that we can't understand now." The first goes, "That's ridiculous. Walking's impossible, and eating with our mouths, that's absurd. The umbilical cord is what scientifically supplies nutrition and all that we need, but it's far too short. Life after delivery is to be logically excluded." And the second says, "What if it's just different than it is here? Maybe we don't need that physical cord anymore." The first goes, "Okay, if there were life after delivery, then tell me, why has no one ever come back from there? Delivery is the end of life, and in the after delivery is nothing but darkness and silence and oblivion. It takes us nowhere." And the second says, "But certainly we'll meet Mother, and she'll take care of us." The first goes, "Mother? You actually believe in Mother? If Mother exists, where is she now?" And the second goes, "She's all around us. We are of her. It's in her that we live. Without her, this world would not and could not exist." And the first says, "I don't see her. It's only logical that she's not there." To which the second replied, "Sometimes when you're in silence and you really listen, you can perceive her presence. You can hear her loving voice calling down from above." I thought that was such a beautiful metaphor for God's care for us while we're here on earth. Even though we can't see him, he's all around us. And someday when we leave here, after delivery from all that this world holds, we'll get to actually stand in his presence, and we'll get to finally see things as they really are. But in the meantime, if we're still and we really listen, we may just hear his voice. I'm not comparing mothers to God, but there is a spiritual component to what goes on between mothers and their children. The weight of the care that is going to be required once you hold that newborn baby in your arms, it's significant. And after going through the experience of having a child, it's just hard to imagine that there isn't someone who created this miraculous form of delivery. My 3 kids are all grown. They're 32 to 42 years old. But I can remember those first few days and weeks of getting to know them even now. I would just stare at them. I'd rub my fingers over their little bodies gently, just in awe of God's creation. I don't remember a more spiritually alive time in my life than when I was watching my children grow into themselves in those first few years of life. I frequently felt that I was communing with God, that somehow he was watching them with me. Whether I was finding pill bugs in the yard to help them feed their pet toad, Taylor, seeing my daughter Paris twirl around our living room before we had any furniture in it, and before she ever had a thought to whether anybody was judging what she was doing, or witnessing so many of their first times. When Graham was just a few months old, I remember I took him out into our backyard and we laid next to each other on a blanket. And his whole being came alive, his legs and arms in full motion, just watching the leaves on the trees waving above us, flickering with the wind. We must have stayed there for over an hour. And his first time seeing those leaves made me more thankful to the one who created them, in the first place. So Mother's Day always makes me feel grateful. In fact, the very first thing I did after our first child was born was I called my mom just to say thank you. Delphine Kirkland, she's an evangelist, a speaker, a mentor, an author. Here's what she had to say about moms. Those who deem to think that moms are just moms, well, let me let you in on who we really are. We're alarm clocks, we're bathroom attendants, we're hairdressers, we're personal stylists, we're cooks, we're nannies, we're housekeepers, and that's all before we get ourselves together in the morning. We're physicians. We don't have a medical license, but we can heal wounds. We're lawyers. We don't have a degree, but we can mediate between siblings who don't get along, and sometimes adults who act like kids, too. We're chefs. We can pull a meal together out of scraps that we find in the refrigerator. We're accountants. We can make money stretch. We're prayer warriors who pray over their house when everybody else is sleeping. We are the ones keeping the enemy at bay, the strong weapons who God has ordained for this position. So before we take a look at our passage today, I just want to pray for our moms. Father, being a mom is sometimes a joy. Sometimes it's a heartache, but it is a gift from you, and it comes with a weight. In Deuteronomy 6, you instruct us to pass our knowledge of faith along to our children. In Proverbs 22, we read about how we should help to mold a strong character in them. And in Isaiah 66, we're told that as we comfort our children, you comfort us. And we know that our burdens become lighter as we rest them on you. So, Father, help us. Help us. Help moms not to be too hard on themselves. So many young moms today talk about feeling judged by others about how they're parenting. Help us to continue to look to our good Father, to find new ways of encouraging, inspiring, and loving our kids as you continue to do all of those things for us, your kids. And for those adult children who are caring for their older, sometimes health-challenged moms and dads, give us patience and endless kindness, compassion, and grace for them. Help us to remember the sacrifices they once made for us. We ask all of these things in the precious name of your Son, your risen Son, Jesus. Amen. So, one of our lectionary passages today is Psalm 23. I love this psalm. And I know I'm not alone when I say that, right? But the reading or the reciting of it has just somehow always brought me a sense of calm, reassurance. Reassurance, the action of removing someone's doubts or fears. So I want to take just a few minutes to read it and then maybe highlight just a couple of things. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. Or as the King James Version would say, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, King James, the valley of the shadow of death, not actual death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love or mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This is the word of the Lord. Question is, do we really believe that we lack nothing? I shall not want. If someone were to ask you, what do you want? What might you say? Would that be a tough question? Or would you have a quick answer? I've always had a hard time saying what I want. I remember meeting with a financial advisor several years ago, and he asked us what we wanted, or when, I should say, when we wanted to retire. And I told him the truth. I said, you know what? I've never thought about it, which made all of his follow-up questions very challenging. What would your budget to live on look like, etc. Some people know exactly what they want. They're even happy to tell you what you want. And it doesn't always have to do with material things. Yes, there are people who want to buy a house or get out of debt, but others who say, I want to get married. I want to get healthy. I want to have a child. I want to stay healthy. I want to be treated fairly without prejudice. In high school, I had a friend. She said, I remember this so clearly. I'm going to marry a rich man. That is really specific, right? We weren't particularly close, and I have no idea where she is now, but I have wondered from time to time if she got what she wanted and if he was all she hoped for. When my kids were younger and they'd ask me, Mom, what do you want for your birthday or Mother's Day, whatever, I would usually say, just for you all to get along, just for a little peace and quiet. The hardest question, I think, when it comes to what do you want, it's usually, what do you want for dinner? I am not sure there's ever been a time in history that people have wanted more. I mean, other than food, gas for your car, enough money to pay your bills, what is it that you really need? We all cringe and complain about the cost of things. We compare them today to what they were before COVID happened. And we're not happy about that situation, but I was thinking about it the other day. What do I really need that I don't already have? There's a Jerry Seinfeld clip on Instagram where he suggests that today everything is about money, and it didn't used to be. I do think there's more pressure to have things, to possess, to things that are nice, really nice. But money's always been a problem, always. Since the beginning of time, it wedges itself between us and God. Matthew 6:21, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So who or what do you treasure? In Psalm 23, David says, you make me to lie down in green pastures. Someone once asked his shepherd, how do you make sheep lie down? He said 4 things have to be present. They have to be free of all fear. They have to be free from friction with others of their own kind. They must be free from torment by flies or parasites. And they must be free from the feeling that they have to find food. Free from hunger, right? Well, let's take a look at that list. Most of us are free from physical hunger. What about the other 3? Are we free from fear? I would say categorically no. Free from friction with others of our own kind? Totally? Probably not. And the torment of flies or parasites. We've been in Florida the last couple of months. There are so many kinds of bugs flying around there. It's a distraction. Even when I'm in the house, I feel like I'm still swatting at something. Are you free from distractions? Pay more attention to the things that really don't bring you a more peaceful, purposeful life. Other than going to bed at night or laying on the couch to watch TV or read a book, are there moments in your life where you just lay down and rest your mind, open yourself up to being restored by the shepherd, the one who knows what you need, exactly what you need at any given time? Shepherds provide all that the sheep need to live. The Hebrew definition of shepherd is ra. It means to pasture, tend, feed, associate with, be a friend of, and be a companion. So the shepherd is the number one trusted companion of the sheep. David is credited with writing Psalm 23, and he'd been a shepherd. And he knew that he was much better equipped to give the sheep what they needed. Why? Because he knew them. He could see beyond where they could see. He knew them better than they knew themselves. A shepherd leads his sheep by using his voice, by body language, establishing trust, and using tools like a rod and a staff to guide and correct them. The rod is actually to defend against predators who would hurt the sheep. The staff is to be able to rescue the sheep from a dangerous situation. It's got that hook, Now, technically, we don't get to see our shepherd. So body language is a little tough. I mean, we see him in creation, right? But he still speaks. He speaks through his spirit, through circumstances, through other people. Are we listening for his voice? Are we thanking him when we realize he's speaking to us? I've just been trying to do it lately, just thanking him whenever I feel he's stepping in through a word somebody else has or a moment I'm witnessing, or I think it gets easier to know when he's speaking the longer you're listening for his voice. I think it's interesting that shepherds walk ahead of their sheep because they want to show them where they're supposed to go. The more time the shepherd spends with the sheep, the stronger the relationship becomes and the more they trust him, right? That's true of our good shepherd. In John 10, it says the shepherd calls his own sheep by name and he leads them. And when they're all out of their pen, he goes on ahead of them and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. I think the picture of him going out ahead of us, I think that's an important one to hold on to. When we're following him, one pastor says the Hebrew translation of follow here means hunt down or pursue. So farther down in Psalm 23, when David talks about goodness and mercy following us all the days of our lives, he's suggesting goodness and mercy is going to continue to hunt us down, pursue us. What an interesting way to look at that. It doesn't mean, look, only good things are ever going to happen to you. No, that's not true here. But he went on to clarify, as we follow the shepherd, goodness and mercy is following us. Who else is following us? What else? My cousin Sherry's 5 years younger than I am. When we were kids and she'd come to visit, she would follow me everywhere. I mean, younger kids are usually curious about older kids, right? Dogs follow you around. You're the shepherd. You're the person who protects them, who feeds them, has their well-being in mind. Is there anyone following you because they know you have their well-being in mind? Have you ever been in a relationship with somebody, friend, romantic relationship, who you thought had good intentions towards you until you realized that they actually didn't? That's a hard reality. The shepherd is never far from the sheep, and the sheep know he has good intentions toward them. Psalm 121, starting in verse 3, he will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He'll watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going both now and forevermore. That is a lot of watching. And what's the difference between slumber and sleep? I always wondered about that first. Slumber can refer to a state of being drowsy. Sleep is a very deep state of rest. When my husband's on the couch and I'm telling him something and he starts to nod off, and I'll ask, "Are you asleep?" He'll go, "No, I'm just resting my eyes." That's slumber. The shepherd's watching us. He is. Last month during Easter, we were focusing on Jesus, the sacrificial Lamb of God, who gave his life for us, the sheep. The one who took what we deserve upon himself, the shepherd, became a lamb. After his death and resurrection, Jesus speaks with his disciple Simon Peter, and he tells him 3 times to feed his sheep. John chapter 21. You remember how before Christ was crucified, the night he was arrested, Peter had denied knowing him 3 times. So now, this is later, Christ has come back and is appearing to some of his disciples, friends. And he looks at Simon Peter and he says twice, he said, "Do you love me?" Both times, Peter says, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." The third time, Jesus says, "Peter, do you love me?" Peter says, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." Again, Jesus' response, as it is to the first 2, is, "Then feed my sheep. If you love me, then feed my sheep." Isn't that interesting? The shepherd who cares for us wants us to care for others, right? As we follow him, others will follow us because why? Love attracts love. Some people might think that Jesus was judging Peter by asking him that question 3 times to remind him of the 3 times he denied him. But perhaps it was his way of letting him know that he was forgiven. And the real issue was not what he did in the past. But what's he going to do in the future? Feed my sheep. ChurchOne, God cares about each moment, how we're living right now, and the direction we're headed in as we step into the future. Philippians 3, starting in verse 12, I press on to take hold of that for which Christ Jesus took hold of me. I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it, but one thing I do, forgetting what's behind, straining towards what is ahead. Are you looking for and listening for the shepherd? And are you following him? And are you feeding his sheep? These are the questions I ask you and I ask myself. I just hope I've given you a few things to think on today. God bless you and keep you this week, ChurchOne.